look, let's get started, first of all, with some introductions.
Okay, so my name is Su Lin. I'm from Singapore Press Holdings. I run the sales strategy and operations team.
I'm Jenny from MediaCorp. I head up digital ops and sales.
I'm Hari. I head up Singapore Media Exchange, 60 plus days old, and it's exciting.
Okay, great. So, Harry, we might start with you then. Can you tell us a little bit about what SMX is?
Sure. So about, I would say around more than 60 days ago, in fact, I'm counting simply because it's really exciting. Singapore Media Exchange basically is, as you all know, the only premium programmatic marketplace that has been, born out of, I suppose, the vision of two largest media conglomerates in Singapore. That's SPH and MediaCorp. This was in the works for a while, but it gathered steam just around, from January, which is when I was associated for the first time with them, starting to build, audience segments and stuff like that in our unified DMP. So that's how I started off. Today, we've come quite a long way in a very short while. So this is a publisher co-op that is addressing all the premium programmatic eyeballs and inventory in the market as of now. With a very clear vision and objective of providing brand-safe, bot-free, high-quality premium inventory at scale and powered by unified data from both the companies. So that's effectively what Singapore Media Exchange is. And, we've come a long way. We'll talk more about it in a bit.
Yeah, great. So I think when planning out the content for ATS, I talked to a lot of people. And I think the thing that really struck me when I was talking to you guys was that actually, it's an incredibly relevant conversation for this room, but also there was this really interesting story of a partnership between two big competitors, So I want to hear about that a little bit. How did this idea first come about, and how did you actually get it to happen?
So I'll kick it off. We were trying to solve problems, right? We were trying to solve a problem for the publisher as well as for the brands. So for the publisher, we all know that we're coming under revenue pressures. The market is increasingly dominated by the duopoly. They have scale, right? They have scale like you cannot imagine because they aggregate a very, very long tail. And they have data sets so deep, So as local publishers, even if we have one of the largest sites in town, on our own, we're still not scaled up enough for the brands. So coming together, we then are able to offer a far larger reach than what we were able to do on our own, right? Then data. Data is key to programmatic. And I think publishers, we pride ourselves on very good quality first-party data. And that's fine and good. But again, scale is a problem. So we realized that we really need to break down the data silos of the supply side. And coming together, because we have the same interests, the same goals, and the same ambitions, we thought we would solve our problems better than if we were to do it ourselves. Yeah.
I'm just adding, I think from a brand perspective, there was also obviously a lot of challenges. I know last year, as we all do, there was a lot of challenges around brand safety. When it comes to advertisers understanding the programmatic space, it's very complex. Sometimes I think we're the victims of our own success because it is so complex. It is, non-transparent ecosystem. There's middlemen involved. There's lots of emerging tech. It's very hard to get your head around that. And I think we just wanted to come up with a solution that was a viable alternative in this market, that was, an easy-to-use solution that gave access to premium inventory at scale. And not only inventory, but premium audiences at scale.
Yeah, and so how does it work then? So then, Harry, you're running effectively a separate team then. Maybe if you can just talk through how it works.
Yeah, so maybe I'll give a bit of background. So individually, I think the publishers, both MediaCorp and ourselves, we've been thinking and studying the consortium and the alliance kind of happenings all over the world. We are hardly the first. I think we've studied it for like 5 over years. And then, well, lo and behold, one day the senior execs just came together over lunch and realized that,
Over
you know,
lunch, of
there's a lot of alignment. And, you know, at high levels, they decided that we're going to work together.
Yep.
And and that's how two very fierce competitors have come together to form a marriage of equals. I think that was the term.
And so I just want to pick up on that because you mentioned that, you know, that this is not the first time it's happened, and we've seen some successes in other markets and we've seen some failures as well. You know, I think Pangea from Europe, was it from Europe? Yep. An example, Apex in Australia, Capex in New Zealand, but is still around though. So that's a positive example then, I guess. So how did you look to this? And I guess why do you guys think that this is going to work when it hasn't worked for some others?
I think it's a great point. So while we were launching it, we spent a lot of time talking to either, you know, the likes of Capex. And when we looked at all the consortiums around the region, we saw Capex as one of the most successful. I think New Zealand got it right. We also...
Easier. I guess it's got some market similarities in a way that's to Singapore.
Same market size, you know, with the same number of a few dominant media owners. I think it's important. Same market size.
Thank you.
And a few dominant market owners. So, yeah, she's giving me the dirty eye.
No.
I also think that we also spoke to some of our tech partners who also had exposure to some of the other consortiums. So we really got an understanding of what worked well and what didn't work well. And, you know, I guess without going into too much detail, I think, you know, the most important point was we all needed to be aligned on the goals. So when we all came together, we had to be 100% aligned on goals. What is the vision of SMX? You know, and it's a joint venture. So, I mean, I heard a lot yesterday about, you know, even within consortiums being frenemies, it's not the point here. We're a partnership, we're a joint venture, and I think that's an important point.
And so I know you've only been going for 60 days, but have you come across any problems yet where that partnership has been challenged in any way?
No, I mean, I would give a straight no. Well, there are challenges in terms of setting up a consortium and scaling it. Those challenges are always there, right? I mean, there are technology challenges, integration challenges, and all of that. So that's just normal. From a support perspective, I would say that this has been awesome from both the organizations. Thank you, Sulin, and thank you, Jenny. There's a very clear alignment from both the sides. There are very clear boundary lines drawn. There are clear rules of engagement. I think what I have seen so far is the fact that there's a lot of groundwork that's been done in the last 1 year, and I can see that they've probably taken out the best of all the successful co-ops in the world and created a concoction called SMX. That's the way I would put it. And so far, it's been working very well.
Well, and so what's the reception like in market?
Okay, so you know that I'm not from the sell side. I've not been in the sell side for a while. So when I made the re-entry, it was an eye-opener for me, to be honest, because there's a lot of appetite in the market for a viable alternative, a place or a platform that buyers can go to access premium programmatic, non-guaranteed inventory, and also powered by first-party data. So there's a lot of appetite in the market, and that pent-up demand just needs to be leveraged upon in the right fashion. In the right fashion is the right word, simply because, you know, you got to be really careful in terms of what you're selling and how you're selling. So to answer your question, yes, I mean, I can see that there is a lot of potential as well as appetite in the market, as we can see today.
Okay, great. And so maybe if you guys can just talk a little bit about, this partnership again. So Jenny, when we were talking about this beforehand, you mentioned that there were some challenges in getting it up and running. Maybe if you can explore that a little bit further, because I know we definitely have some other people in the audience from other markets, for instance, who are also thinking, you know, what are the opportunities for them? Maybe if you can give some guidance.
When you're launching an exchange, there's a lot of things that need to come together. There was a lot of different moving parts, whether it's, you know, deciding on what ad formats and what inventory, you know, you're going to put in there. It's also about the go-to-market strategy. It's about the data, of the merging of that data, what are the custom audiences that we want to find within that and so on. So there were so many different moving pieces. So very early on, we formed a task force, which was important. It was very nimble, it was very lean. There was 7 of us across SPH and MediaCorp. So that's pretty lean.
Yeah.
And over that 7-month time period, I think communication was critical. So we had to meet. We did meet on a weekly basis, face to face. We went through all of that, literally 2 or 3 hour meetings at a time. To go through those missing pieces. We had shared documents and all that kind of stuff. But communication was really key.
And and so then I just want to touch then on the data ownership piece. Particularly in light of some of the challenges we've seen over the last 12 months, GDPR implications. Then what sort of impact has that had on the project, and how do you work together?
I'll answer it from a GDPR perspective.
Yep.
I think both of us have, with GDPR, we've been both talking about it for a long time, so I'd say since October, November, December, last year, I should say. We've evaluated it and we've minimised our risk. So very early on, we identified when it comes to obviously having EU residents as part of our databases.
Yep.
It made up about 4% of our database. We're very local in the content we produce. So of course we purged that, and then obviously we set processes in place. So when we're collecting data, whether it be through single sign-on or whatever, we're not collecting obviously in euros and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was about minimising the risk, and then I think the other important thing is the data processors that we work with. So that will be Lotame and AppNexus.
Yep.
And those guys, as we all know, are very, very GDPR compliant. So we had no worries there. You have to cover both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
So I think GDPR wasn't a huge issue for us.
Yeah, it's the same for us. We have quite a small audience from Europe, so the exposure was limited. It may not be in other markets. Yeah.
And I'd just like to add on, looking forward, right? You're talking about token-based and ID-based targeting. So our very clear objective here, as well as with the timeline, is to get to that particular people-based marketing situation. And that's happening via signing up with the Open Ad ID Consortium in the US. We are the first one to sign up in the APAC. And by that, what we hope to achieve is to bring an identity graph into the market. Being the largest pool of data outside the walled gardens, I think we would be the driving force behind that Open Ad ID Consortium, which means that a token-based marketing will come into place versus a pixel sync based marketing, because 75% of the ad requests today are pixel sync based, and that basically is a big problem for UX. So we all know that. So we'll go beyond the cookie and develop an ID based graph, and that's kind of again taking cue from what we're saying, right? We are moving towards a people based marketing that will reduce the bombarding of ads to people, for example, and kind of make it a much more premium in the real sense with the context.
Yeah, and so I want to pick up on that point then so what's the future vision? So, in terms of growth, is it, outside of Singapore, regional play? What's next?
I think for the first 60 days, was it, and the 7 months before it, I think what we've been going through is putting ourselves as the guinea pigs. We are the two frontliners. We're working through the process. It's laborious. It's not sexy. Thank goodness for our wonderful partners in AppNexus and Lotame and the great working team. I think we're trying to put down certain systems, certain processes, so that others that come and join us later, whether it's by way of putting in their inventory or their data sets to enrich our combined data set, I think they will have a far easier immersion as opposed to what we had to go through ourselves. So that the next step is to invite other publishers to come and join us, or data partners, right? So
are you already actively pursuing that? I know you're only 60 days in, but do you have a roadmap for this?
Well, it's kind of surprising, I would say. We thought it should be a sequential process, getting our act together in Singapore and then moving on to the next, but it doesn't look like it. It's a little bit of a parallel process now, as far as I can see. Over to Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, when we first announced this, we've had a lot of interest, interestingly, from around the region, from different media players, whether it be Malaysia, Indo, or Philippines particularly.
Yeah.
We have been talking to those media players. I think in the next few months, we'll really stabilise Singapore. and then we'll be looking out for the rest of the region.
Yeah, because actually, were you guys here for the panel yesterday with the Thai publishers, which was really interesting. So, I mean, you know, certainly.
So we're going to close on that later, so we'll leave the punchline for later.
Oh, right.
We planned the punchline.
I know, we want to know what the punchline is. Anyway, we're coming up to the end. So.
Yeah, good.
I think I already kind of
you've got a
mentioned it
pre-prepared
before.
thing.
No,
right.
great.
Great.
I think it was the whole thing. Like the biggest key takeaway from yesterday that really resonated with me is that they kept referring to the consortium and the media companies in the consortium as frenemies, and that's for us. That's not the way we look at it. It's a long-term partnership. And we don't want, you know, even with publishers looking to come in, you know, don't look at this as a short-term play. It's a long-term play where, you know, we can help address some of these issues both on the demand side and the supply side, you know, and work on, you know, how do we bring and help innovate and bring new things to market within this space.
Yeah.
So I think that probably was my main point, is that it's a partnership.
For us, what's guiding us is this phrase often used about, you know, if you want to go fast, you go it alone, but if you want to go far, you go it together. So this guides us, and as long as we keep an eye on the ball, you know, it's the same ball. Let's not lose track of that. Let's have a lot more appetite for risk taking. Let's have a test and learn mindset. You know, let's make decisions together, and definitely no blame game at all.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we'll get there.
I think it'll be interesting because, I mean, you know, my take on this is that I think it works really well because you guys clearly work really well together. So there's that personal relationship. Oh, yeah.
There were no calls to, you know, obviously we
No
missed
WhatsApp. There was
I am
nothing.
neutral, that's why I'm white.
Ah, right. But I think it'll be interesting, you know, as you look to scale it out and add in other partners, you know, how do you keep that personal relationship as the core of your scaling, you know?
I think because we've kind of already set the foundation in place,
Yeah.
I think it will be fairly easy to align the goals early on, you know, as we get new publishers coming in.
Yeah.
So there's a template, there's a structure, like Jenny said, right? There's a structure in place. We know what are those steps that led to this consortium. So we have all that laid out.
Yeah.
And we're also looking only at very premium publishers. So therefore, I'm sure that the thinking and the thought process as well as the overall objectives will be the same. So I don't think it'll be that
Which would be
difficult.
interesting then.
Yeah, which should
because
be interesting for sure.
like the conversation yesterday as well, you know, the Thai marketplace and whether they're allowed in or not. So, yeah. But anyway, look, great. Awesome. Thank you for your time. Really interesting, and good luck with it all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jody.